Welcome everybody to this webinar, Being Fat in Media and the Corporate World. My name is Shannon Malone-deBenedictis. I am a television consultant, public speaker, and workshop facilitator. We're going to go a little bit through my life and hopefully have some takeaways for you on how to enjoy life and embrace life a little bit better. This is part of a webinar series called Fully Unapologetic. We did have a name change, but we're going with Fully Unapologetic, and I hope that you join future ones. At the end, I'll talk about some of the future webinars I'll be giving, as well as how you can reach me. Okay, so let's dive in. So here's a question I have for you. Do you ever feel uncomfortable in your own skin? Do you sometimes look in the mirror and go, wait, is that me? What? I have had an uncomfortable relationship with my body my whole life. I never known a time where I wasn't chubby or fat. And as you can see through these photos, I was an adorable chubby little kid. And I was extremely active. I played sports all year around. I would play soccer in the spring and fall. I would swim and play tennis and golf in the summer. In winter, it was basketball. And then I developed a knee problem. It's called Osgood-Schlatter's. It's very common amongst young athletes. And I had to transition, and I moved into volleyball and softball. And actually, in volleyball and softball, in my tween and teenage years, is where I shined. I was an all-star, state all-star in softball. I was a catcher, and I could throw people out at second. And in volleyball, I set a county record serving out an entire game, 15-0, and I had 12 aces in it. So I was really, really active, and yet I was still heavy. No matter what, I was heavy. So as I transitioned into adulthood, my weight would fluctuate. And I would have two pairs of pants, the same pants but in different sizes. And I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Those are it's not that uncommon to have that. When you find something you like, you buy it. Except for me, my weight fluctuation would be like 30 pounds. It was a big swing. And it was life. It was how active I was, how stressed I was. It was just life, but still was heavy. And during my 20s and 30s, I had a roommate, my best friend, and she one time just said to me, "I've seen you eat. You don't overdo it. You eat normally." And yet, here I was. I was heavy. So when it came to my professional life, I thought if I worked hard and just hunkered down, my weight wouldn't be noticed. That all those kind of assumptions wouldn't be put on me. That I would just be me, that hardworking, tough employee. And in my 20s, I did that at the staffing firm I worked at. And then when I transitioned into television when I was 29, that was it. Head down, work 12-hour days, never say no to an assignment, work. And I would go to events, conferences, mixers, ceremonies, whatever. And I would notice I would be the only person there over a size 8. And wait, no, I want to rephrase that. I would be the only woman there over a size 8. Okay, so it felt a little awkward at times, and but it's like, no matter, just going to keep working, try not to be too uncomfortable, and just work. I'll put my head down and I'll work. And it worked. For the most part. I got promoted and I was given more responsibility, and I kept noticing that I was the only large woman still, even as I grew. In fact, I noticed I was the only fat woman in any of the circles I worked in all the meetings, all the outside client meetings, all the internal things. I would be the only fat woman. And so I was like, okay, I want to make sure that my behavior isn't misconstrued. So I tried not to be too loud, because fat women are notoriously perceived as being aggressive or intimidating. And I would always wear black, because black was slimming. Black was something that made you look smaller. Dear God, I would never wear anything with horizontal lines. Nothing, because from the time I was a small child, Horizontal lines were a no-no. That was drilled into my head from a very small age. Um, if I went out with a group of peers, like we went to lunch or we did something, I would never sit at the head of the table. I would find a place where maybe I was a little off. I was involved, but I wasn't front and center. Um, because I kept telling myself I'm going to let my work speak for me. Um, I was holding myself back just a little bit, not being maybe as gung ho or as assertive I wanted, because, you know, they'll see me for the hard work and what I'm producing. So one day, when I was a producer, I was sitting with my boss talking about a recent road trip of meetings that we went on. And this is something that we would do frequently. We would go, we'd hit the road, we'd visit a whole bunch of our clients. These are production companies who produce shows for the network. And he was one of the few black executives at Discovery Channel. And I had seen up close some of the stuff he had to deal with. And at this meeting we went to, it was with one client who was one of the biggest nonfiction producers in the country, in the world. And as we sat down with him, he refused to make eye contact with my boss. He kept talking directly to me. And no matter how hard I tried, I kept trying to push the conversation over to him. The client would not acknowledge him. And it was appalling. It was absolutely atrocious. And sadly, not as infrequent as one would hope. And back then, this is the aughts, there wasn't a lot of things you could do. It was a different time and a difficult time, and to speak up, and it's still this way today, to speak up can cause harm to your career, and I know many of you understand this. So I told him, we talked about it, and we kind of laughed, and we broke it down, and kind of assured each other we had each other's back. I made it clear that I was just absolutely shocked, and that I would always stand by him. And he then said to me in a moment of solidarity, I thought black folks were mistreated badly in this industry, and then I see how they treat you. It's almost as bad. A black man said that to me. I had seen everything he had gone through, and how the stereotypes were wrongly applied to him. And I knew I could speak up about what he experienced, because I have never taken for granted the privilege I have as a white woman. I get that. My outrage is even part of my privilege. But little did I know that he saw some of those stereotypes, those biases applied to me. Behavior applied to me because of my weight. And it shook me. It shook me a little bit. The fact that I'm still talking about it, that I remember it clearly. Because a realization hit me that day. I realized I was trying to hide, but the truth was there was no way I could. Despite doing all the right things, not being too loud, wearing black, working really hard, but not being too braggy, I could not change the fact that people saw me as a fat woman, because I was a fat woman. I was a big fat woman. So I know some of you might be thinking, why hide? Well, there's a good reason to be worried and want to hide. Employees can still be fired for being overweight in the United States. As of 2024, there is no explicit law against it. And the explanation for the terminations usually fall between health issues and financial liabilities. And I raise an eyebrow at this, because I think this is a really, really slippery slope. Because I've known many colleagues, all physically thin, be struck with a debilitating or terminal illness. So I think it's a really Gattaca-esque slippery slope, if you know the movie reference I'm dropping here. And then there was a study just recently that 2 scientists found that fat high school students are discriminated against by teachers and college interviewers. What they found is a fat high school girl has 1/3 less chance of college than her thin classmates. And overweight boys have the same problem. They're less discriminated against because men's clothing standards tend to hide fat more than a woman's does. And just recently, philosopher Kate Mann released this book called Unshrinking. And in it, she notes that there's considerable evidence of the adverse health effects of being subjected to social stigma and having highly internal weight bias. Some of those things include high blood pressure, high blood glucose and triglycerides, abnormal cholesterol, and heightened levels of inflammation and cortisol. Now, I want to talk about that last one, heightened levels of inflammation and cortisol. That is what you find in people who suffered trauma, in disaster regions, etc. So what the evidence is showing is that the mental cost of being heavy takes a physical and emotional toll on your body due to the bias you face. I have experienced weight discrimination my whole life. Teachers, when I was a kid, assumed I was a bully, when in fact I was actually sticking up for myself. I would not allow myself to be bullied. I once was sent to the principal's office because a thin girl who had been bullying me mercilessly pretended to fall and hurt herself, and she claimed that I pushed her. I remember the school office secretary, when I tried to tell her that I didn't do anything, she said, "A tiny girl like her bullying you? Come on, we know it was you." I was called hurtful nicknames and taunted, and they still resonate with me. People sometimes will make a cute pun about my name, and they see me kind of visibly wince. I will note that the only one I approve of is Shenanigan. I think that's actually pretty great. So those things kind of live in the back of your memory. They live there, they exist. And then as I reached adulthood, I started experiencing some more bullying and open shunning, as if for some reason having weight loss, being heavier meant I was deaf, that I had hearing loss too. I stopped going to happy hours and mixers because on more than one occasion I had random men standing at the bar in groups say out loud that there was no way in hell that anyone would be interested in me. And I wasn't even interacting with them. I wasn't even interested in them. So that's kind of the stuff that being heavy your whole life experiences you to. And it wears you down, even in a body like mine, even when you love and appreciate it. So you do everything you can to fit in. You strategically find ways to make yourself small. You wear black a lot. If you're walking down a sidewalk, you always move to the side because you don't want to be viewed as taking up the whole walkway. You avoid parties and gatherings where strangers may be, but those same parties and gatherings might be where your next career opportunity is or your next big lead. And you don't fight every fight because you're afraid you'll be seen as aggressive, or you're just tired of it, or if you're remembering your childhood, you won't be believed. So when my boss noted he had seen some of the treatment I had received, my heart sank, because I had hoped that my talents would outshine my plus-size body. And perhaps it did a little bit. I don't think anybody has ever applied the lazy stereotype to me. Ever. But, it wasn't enough. I was still the fat woman and the assumptions that kind of came with it. And in some ways, the way I was addressing it was also amplifying those biases. Allison Fregal is an organizational behavior expert at the University of North Carolina's Keenan Flagler Business School. Her book, The Likeable Badass, defined exactly what I was doing. In dealing with the bias, both real and perceived, I was being submissive. In trying to be small, I was undervaluing myself. Sure, I had power. I was succeeding in many ways. But in many ways, I was also lacking in status. I was putting myself in the corner. I was making myself small. I wasn't stepping up. And that was hurting me. It was a weakness. So that's what I was doing. And I realized that I needed to change because Lord knows I was tired at this point. So now I'm a TV producer. We're at that part of the story where a huge transformational arc occurs. I pick up running or biking. I lose 150 pounds and compete in my first Ironman, and I become a multimillionaire. I mean, that's how I would write it if this were a screenplay. But it's not a movie, it's life. Life isn't the movies, is it? Well, maybe we could pick up a little bit from the movies, like Barbie. Maybe there's a self awakening that happens. And I did have a self awakening. I decided to stop hiding. I decided to stop being small. And I decided to be more comfortable in my own skin. I stopped wearing all black. And to quote the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral, I embraced all the colors of the rainbow and more. I tossed away all my business shoes because not only did I hate them, but remember the knee injury when I was a kid? Wearing any type of heel is hell for me. It hurts because of a damaged knee. I left working in a network. And part of the reason for that was the network was very good, but it was also safe. It was a safe bubble. Sometimes people call them the golden handcuffs. And I don't say that dismissively. I just know that it was safe for me. And I needed to go take a risk. So I took a big leap and I found a business partner who was a lot like me. He was tenacious, hardworking, determined, unbelievably creative, talented. Again, lazy is never going to be applied to him. And he had his own little burden, his own little dealing with bias. He didn't have a college degree in a very ivory tower world. And it made me realize that most of us we have issues. We all at times feel uncomfortable in our own skin. And we took this business from zero, literally in the basement of his house and with 3.5 employees, to an international powerhouse. Our clients included Netflix, Disney Plus, Sesame Street, Smithsonian, WebMD, WB Discovery, and others. We analyzed and saw a big opening in the wildlife filmmaking area and became one of the largest producers of natural history programming in the United States. I would take calls at baseball parks because I was important enough to take a call at a baseball park. I had that privilege, that status. I could do that. And along the way, we won 4 Emmys, including one for Best Documentary Series for Secrets of the Whales. I want to show you something. Here's a photo. Do you notice anything? My dress matches the statue perfectly. No black, no making myself small, no hiding. I was going to shine. I was and am a big, beautiful swan. So, how do you find that inner swan? How do you have that breakthrough? How do you overcome those biases? Look, I'm not going to lie. They're still there. You're going to face them. But we can slowly chip away at them. Slowly suck the air and power out of them. There's a great Simpsons episode, A Treehouse of Horror, where all the billboards come to life and terrorize the town. And ultimately, Lisa saves the day with Paul Anka, where they come up with a jingle saying, "Just don't look, just don't look." And everybody in the town turns their backs on them. And slowly, one by one, all these giant mascots fall dead. It was because they were thriving on our attention. Just don't look. Don't give the haters attention. Let them suffocate. Recognize your own power. Books like The Likeable Badass and programs and books by the extraordinary Louise Green and Big Fit Girl help you see yourself for who you are. Strong, powerful, and a shiny rainbow. And I can say for certain that Louise Green has changed lives. I've seen it firsthand. Another way is to find heroes who inspire you, like Louise for me. I am a massive fan of Latoya Shante Snell. She's an ultramarathoner and is labeled herself as the running fat chef. She just came back from doing an ultramarathon, and I think she's done 4 long distance races in the past month. And she is herself. No hesitation, no apologies. She is confident in who she is. Madeline Jones runs a magazine that highlights plus-size fashion and editors and influencers, and she also just dropped her own fashion line. And the great part about her fashion line is it looks great. It's not made for small people trying to wrap around a big person. It is fabulous. And then Divine Joy Randolph. Amazing. She can play a record store employee, she can play a detective, and she can play a woman who works at a private boys prep school. And all the while, when she wins this Oscar, she won every red carpet event. She is a fashionista and proud of it. And lastly, surround yourself with people who cheer you on. Work with people who know you belong at the head of the table. Find an accountability partner. I have an accountability partner. We check in on each other once a week, and we remind each other that we are forces to be reckoned with. We boost each other up. It's okay to have someone to be your wingman and boost you up. Who encourages you to speak up and helps you stay out of the shadows? Now, I know some of you are probably like, that's just some dumb, rah-rah princess junk. No, yeah, whatever. But here's what I want to counter with. What voice inside your head is saying that? My bet, it's the one who's scared you'll be let down or scared to move outside of the shadow. Explore why something may make you afraid. Sometimes, actually a lot of times, those inner voices are wrong. It's okay to come out from the shadows. It's okay to enjoy and embrace yourself. So I want to end with a picture I have beside my bed. And when I worked in TV, I got this picture because I thought that it really helped me amplify who I was and remind me of who I was. So as you see, it's a bunny, and the bunny is wearing a leopard print vest. To me, the bunny is powerful, with or without the vest. Fierce, a force. You can hear the bunny roaring in this picture. And it makes me smile. Every morning, this picture makes me smile. And more importantly, it reminds me, or more precisely, it reminds the bunny inside of me to roar, to be assertive, to be heard, and to be powerful. And so I would look at this before I go into a client meeting or go to a conference or go into an edit suite or direct a shoot, that I'm powerful. I am. I might feel like a bunny at times, but even then I'm a powerful, powerful bunny. So be a strong bunny or be a swan. Be you. Thank you. So before we get to the Q&A, I just want to talk about my company. Some future webinars coming. Next week, it's Role Models in Nature. It's not the alpha wolf. We talk a lot about some extraordinary animals that live in our world who maybe don't get the kudos they deserve, and most of them happen to be the females leading the pack. So it's not the alpha wolf. 2 weeks from now, I have How to Sell Yourself Like a TV Show. This is using the same techniques that you use in developing a television pitch and applying it to yourself and to recognize what those key selling points are. After the beginning of the year, I have from idea to pitch how to find that documentary hook. And this is if you have an idea from a very small nugget and you want to develop it into something bigger, here's how you can do it. And then later on in the month, I have Animal Docs 101. This is how we create the magic and how we structure the story when you're creating an animal documentary. So I hope you can join. If you have your camera up right now, go ahead and scan the barcode, the QR code. That will bring you to the Eventbrite page. So, lastly, I'd love any feedback from you about things you enjoyed, things you wanted more information on, any improvements or suggestions for future webinars. I appreciate it. Scan that code, it'll bring you to a form, and I look forward to your feedback. Okay, now let's open it up for questions or anything. I'm happy to discuss. We've got a little bit of time. And again, thank you.